Hello, friends. Hello. Okay, here is your moon blog for the upcoming Pisces full moon with lunar eclipse that is happening on August 28th, 2026. All right, let me get it ready for you guys. Here we go. All right. The theme of this full moon in Pisces with lunar eclipse is I'm going to show you crazy. All right, here we go. This full moon in Pisces with partial lunar eclipse illuminates the crazy all around us, reminding us that when the societal systems surrounding us are themselves insane, what's often labeled as crazy is simply pathways back to a shared sanity. When I connected with the energy of this eclipse, something rose up in me that I wasn't entirely expecting. The energy was not dreamy, not soft, not sensitive, and not floaty in that lovely Pisces way I'm familiar with. No, something else rose up instead. Something fierce, something resolved, something certain, and something that could no longer tolerate containment. Then I heard it loud and clear and entirely apologetically. Entirely unapologetically. Oh, I'm going to show you crazy. And I burst into laughter while I also gulped a little. Yep, that kind of crazy. That kind that refuses to contort itself to meet a society that has in many ways already lost its collective mind, its collective heart, and the collective plot. The kind of crazy where we decide to stop shrinking ourselves to fit into a world that has called our gifts weird, our spirituality wacky, our sensitivity weak, and our optimism and hope delusional. The kind of crazy where you look at everything too many in society have labeled irrational, woo-woo, or unrealistic. The astrology, the Reiki, the spirit guides, the somatic shaking, and the sound making, and the moon tracking, and the talking to your plants. You know, all the things that make life magically more fun. And you say, fine, you think my relationship with spirit is crazy? You want crazy? All right then, hold my tea because I'm about to show you crazy. Here's something I know. In a world that has become genuinely unhinged in its lack of kindness, its disregard for the earth, its cruelty toward other species, and its moral confusion, being called crazy might actually be a sign that you're one of the sane ones. And building off the same energy of the Leo new moon eclipse, this Pisces lunar eclipse is our continued permission to go bigger, get more real, more raw, more unapologetically ourselves than ever before as we discard the social conditioning that enmeshes us in the insanity of our current human condition. Eclipse energy, the final chapter. Hold on, let me take a little sip of my tea. Well, cacao, really, but anyway. This Pisces full moon is a partial lunar eclipse when most, but not all, of the moon passes through Earth's shadow. More significantly, this is the final eclipse in Pisces for this entire cycle. We've been on a nearly 2-year journey of eclipses along the Pisces Virgo axis since September 2024. A long, deep, sometimes exhausting journey of dissolution, healing, spiritual opening, and release. And this eclipse closes that chapter completely. We will not have another eclipse in Pisces until 2034. This is an ending. Something that's been completing itself for almost 2 years is finally fully crossing the threshold. Something you've been learning, releasing, or becoming through this entire cycle is now ready to be integrated or let go of entirely. Eclipse season is famous for its chaotic yet faded and more intense energies. The invitation of eclipse season is not to control what happens. It is to be present enough to see clearly what it is showing you and brave enough to release what it is asking you to release. The energy of Pisces, mutable water, and the courage of the mystic. As the mutable water sign of the zodiac and the final sign of the astrological wheel, Pisces is the energy of dissolution, transcendence, compassion, mysticism, and the extraordinary, boundless wisdom of the soul. Pisces is the sign that remembers what all others have forgotten, that we are not separate, that the boundaries between self and other, between the seen and the unseen, between the physical and the spiritual, are far more permeable than our rational minds would have us believe. In her light, Pisces is deeply compassionate, profoundly intuitive, magnificently creative, and spiritually attuned in ways that can genuinely feel like magic to those around her. She is the dreamer, the mystic, the healer, the artist, the one who feels everything and somehow turns it into something beautiful. She trusts the invisible because she knows that just because it cannot yet be measured or proven doesn't make it unreal. And here's what Pisces understands that the so-called rational world keeps trying to forget. The things that cannot be explained are often the things that matter most. Love, intuition, the feeling of a spirit presence, the way a tree seems to breathe back at you when you really pay attention. the knowing that arrives before the evidence. These are not delusions, they are data of a different and arguably more honest kind. Yet in her shadow, Pisces can become so dissolved in the collective that she loses herself entirely. She can escape into fantasy when reality feels too hard, or become so empathetically porous that she absorbs everyone else's pain without knowing it. She can be avoidant, unclear, or so committed to seeing the best in people and situations that she denies what's actually there. The shadow of Pisces is when her beautiful openness becomes a way of avoiding, when she dissolves into the ether rather than standing rooted and real in her full, strange, magnificent self. This lunation with lunar eclipse is calling Pisces and all of us back to that rooted, real, embodied version of her mystical nature. The astrology, Virgo season, Uranus, and a yod of transformation. All right, let's dive into some of the astrology around this Pisces full moon because it's not unsurprising. Well, it's not surprisingly potent. The sun is in Virgo, Pisces' opposite sign, bringing a grounding, discerning, practical counterpoint to all of Pisces' oceanic feeling. The Virgo Pisces axis has been our teacher for nearly 2 years now. The balance between logic and intuition, between the mind and the heart, between service to the practical world and surrender to the spiritual one. This eclipse invites us to find where these two can coexist in us rather than compete. Right before this eclipse, at 10:10 a.m. Pacific time, on 8:27 to be exact, the planet of communication, transportation, and thought, Mercury, sits cazimi the sun in Virgo, at the very heart of the sun, its clearest and most powerful placement. Mercury also rules the sign of Virgo, meaning Mercury is exalted and happy here. Whatever becomes crystal clear to you on August 27th is likely the exact thing this eclipse then asks you to feel, honor, and release. So pay attention to what lands with unusual clarity the day before this lunar eclipse. That is the eclipse showing you what it has come for. And then there's Uranus, the planet of sudden radical change in Gemini, squaring both the sun and the moon. And this square, like Uranus, is not subtle. This energy is disruptive, electric, radical, and absolutely done with anything that has been limiting us. Uranus is the one having us feel like it's time to break the lock on the cage. I think Uranus is a big part of the energy behind that I'm going to show you crazy lunar theme that I intuited. Uranus in Gemini says the old narratives are over. The old stories about who gets to be taken seriously, whose gifts are valid, whose way of being in the world is legitimate, those stories are crumbling. And the disruption, as uncomfortable as it can feel, is in service of something genuinely liberating. Also active at this eclipse is a powerful yod. Yod. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. It's Y-O-D. I pronounce it yod, but it might be yod. Anyway, a rare astrological configuration when 3 planets come together to make a narrow triangular shape. Yods are often referred to as fingers of fate because they form a tight triangular shape that looks like a pointing finger. Not unlike eclipse energy, yods are known to bring in fated and predestined happenings and changes, along with a sense of friction that can often spur on movement. This yod is occurring between Neptune, the planet of intuition, imagination, and illusion, and Aries, Pluto, representing death, rebirth, and transformation in Aquarius, and the Virgo sun. And it's encouraging us to keep asking uncomfortable questions and keep making necessary changes. This Pisces full moon with lunar eclipse and potent yod reminds us that we are not required to have it all figured out here. Big theme from the moon. There's only the willingness to hold spiritual surrender, the willingness to hold spiritual surrender and deep psychological transformation at the same time, even if others call that crazy. I'm going to show you crazy. Let's talk about who actually gets called crazy. It tends to be the people who feel too much in a world that has decided that feeling is weakness. The people who believe in what they cannot see in a culture that has decided that invisible isn't real. The people who shake their bodies and make sounds to regulate their nervous systems, who track the moon and talk to their spirit guides and communicate with their animals and believe that the earth is alive and sacred and deserving of our reverence. So, the with it people like you and me. The people who refuse to pretend that what is happening to the planet, to our collective humanity, to the web of life we are all part of is acceptable. The people who keep saying something is deeply wrong here in a world that keeps trying to normalize the unacceptable. In a society that has become genuinely unhinged in its cruelty, its disconnection from nature, its disregard for other species, and its moral confusion, being called crazy can actually be a sign of moral clarity. What if the ones being labeled irrational and crazy are the ones who are actually paying attention? During this lunar eclipse in Pisces, and especially with Uranus cracking everything open, the moon is done with our shrinking. Done with our apologizing or hiding of our beliefs, values, and gifts. Done with the careful, measured, socially acceptable version of our gifts and our truth that we are comfortable sharing with the world. Not anymore, this Pisces new moon eclipse tells us. You know it's time to reclaim and proudly own those qualities deemed crazy that you hide to keep others comfortable. The astrology, the Reiki, the mediumship, the somatic dance, the moon rituals, the talking to plants and animals and ancestors and guides, the sheer magnificent radical act of being a spiritually alive, energetically sensitive, intuitively gifted human being in a world that doesn't always know what to do with you. Pretty much all the things we proudly do together in my Intuitive Moon community, my online container for lunar connection and intuitive development, just so you know, in case you didn't know about that. And also grace, please. An important thing to keep in mind for this Pisces full moon eclipse and her theme of I'm going to show you crazy. People are going to be on edge and may even be acting hella crazy around you, including me, including the people we love and the strangers we encounter. Eclipse energy is potent and destabilizing, even for those who don't know anything about astrology. Emotions amplify at every full moon, and a lunar eclipse is like a full moon times 100. Old wounds surface and the nervous system can get activated in ways that people can't always explain or name. So as you lean into your crazy, please also extend some grace to yourself when you feel more reactive or tender or overwhelmed than usual, to the people around you who may be processing things that they can't articulate, to the strangers who seem sharper or more fragile than they normally would. This is not the eclipse for forcing conversations, making irreversible decisions, or demanding resolutions from anything that is still mid-process. It is an eclipse for feeling, for releasing, for witnessing, and for giving everyone, including yourself, a little more room to be imperfectly, humanly in the middle of something. Be crazy, be real, be unapologetic, and also please be sure to be kind to yourself too. In conclusion, this Pisces lunar eclipse rises at the close of a nearly 2-year journey, one that has asked us to dissolve, to surrender, to open, to feel, to release, and it arrives now as the final page of that particular chapter. Something is completing, something that has been asking to be let go of is finally fully ready to go. And what steps into that space, what begins in the clearing that this eclipse creates, is a more honest, more embodied, more unapologetically alive version of you. The mystic who knows what she knows, the healer who trusts what she feels, the human being who has decided that being called crazy by a crazy world is actually a compliment and is going to keep showing up fully and fiercely and with her whole strange, beautiful heart anyway. May this Pisces full moon with lunar eclipse release your need to hide your passions and your gifts from a society that's lost its sanity and encourage you to show up as full and crazy as you authentically are, with infinite love and lunar blessings. Me. There you go, friends. There is your lunar forecast, your moon blog for the Pisces full moon with lunar eclipse. We are circling up for this lunar eclipse, Pisces full moon, in my Intuitive Moon community on Friday, August 28th at noon Pacific time. You're more than welcome to join us. You can either join for a one time, just DM me, or if you join us in the Intuitive Moon community, you get your first 3 weeks for free so you can try it out and see how you like it, if it resonates for you. So anyway, happy Pisces full moon. Let yourself be crazy in a very kind and compassionate way. All right, I'll see you next time, friends. Bye. Oh, and for more, of course, please check out the Moon blog by following the link below. And if you're curious about the Intuitive Moon community, everything is down there in the comments. All right, friends, see you next time. Bye.